tonight, tragic word from Ohio. Otto Warmbier, the American student freed from North Korea, has died days after being sent home to his parents in a coma. Violent storm threat for millions across a huge part of the country right now. Record-shattering heat and late word, a tropical storm warning on the Gulf Coast. On alert across Europe tonight after terror strikes London again. And in Paris today, an attacker thwarted on the Champs-Élysées. Dangerous escalation after the U.S. shoots down a Syrian warplane for the first time. The Russians threaten to target American planes. Carrie Fisher, new information tonight on her death, what the medical examiner has revealed. And lights, camera, and a brave little action hero inspiring America. Nightly News begins right now.
From NBC News World Headquarters in New York, this is NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt.
Good evening, and thank you for being with us tonight. There is sad news about the American student medically evacuated from a North Korean prison last week in a coma. The family of Otto Warmbier says the 22-year-old died today. Doctors who treated Warmbier upon his return to the U.S. reported he had suffered severe brain damage while in custody. His family near Cincinnati tonight calling their son the victim of torturous mistreatment. President Trump reacting to the news called North Korea a brutal regime. But it remains unclear exactly what happened to Warmbier during his nearly year-and-a-half time behind bars. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez has late details.
Please think of my family.
Otto Warmbier was just 22 years old when he suddenly arrived from North Korea in a coma. Late today, his family confirmed he would never wake up. His family now says the awful, torturous mistreatment our son received at the hands of the North Koreans ensured that no other outcome was possible beyond the sad one we experienced today.
A lot of bad things happened, but at least we got him home to be with his parents, where they were so happy to see him, even though he was in very tough condition. It's a brutal regime, and we'll be able to handle it.
Last week, Warmbier's father spoke to reporters in the same jacket his son wore when he begged for his freedom.
Please save my life.
And I'm so glad you're home. You are such a great guy.
A student at the University of Virginia, Warmbier had been on a tour of the secretive country when in January of 2016 he was jailed for stealing a propaganda poster and sentenced to hard labor. He finally returned to his home state of Ohio.
His neurological condition can be best described as a state of unresponsive wakefulness.
North Korea claims Warmbier contracted botulism, then slipped into an unconscious state after taking a sleeping pill.
Even if you believe their explanation of botulism and a sleeping pill causing the coma, and we don't, there is no excuse for any civilized nation to have kept his condition secret.
Tonight, his death is still a mystery, but the outrage over it is mounting. Gabe Gutierrez, NBC News.
Tonight, violent storms are pushing across the country. 62 million Americans in the path. Forecasters warning of a dangerous night ahead after a day of sweltering triple-digit heat. And now we have late word of a tropical storm warning along the Gulf Coast. Al Roker is here tracking all of it for us. Al, what has you most concerned?
Well, right now, it's going to be these line of severe storms stretching from New England all the way down into the southeast. 62 million people, as or two out of this system, rounds of storms late tonight. Plus, we've got this dangerous heat from the southwest into the west coast. Triple digits tomorrow from Tucson all the way to Fresno, and it lasts on into the end of this week for Albuquerque, El Paso, Phoenix, Las Vegas, and on into Sacramento. And we now have potential tropical cyclone number 3 in the Gulf, an 80% chance. This is the zone of formation. We expect this to make landfall sometime late Wednesday afternoon. We have tropical storm watches and warnings up from Texas into Louisiana. Rainfall, Lester, the big problem here, they've already gotten 7 to 12 inches of rain in this area. They could pick up another foot, and that would lead to catastrophic flooding later this week. You've got a lot on your plate. I know you'll have an update tomorrow morning, Al. Thanks. Turning overseas now, 2 major cities once again targeted by suspected terror attacks. In Paris, investigators say a man rammed his car packed with explosives and gas canisters into a police vehicle, causing a fiery blast along the Champs-Élysées. The suspect was killed, but no one else was injured. Reports say the suspect was flagged for extremism in the past.
France remains under a state of emergency after a series of terror attacks. And shock in London after yet another suspected terror attack there, the fourth in the UK in just 4 months. This time it appears Muslims were targeted when a van plowed into pedestrians as they left prayers at a mosque. At least one person died, and tonight the suspect is in custody. NBC's Bill Neely is there and has the latest.
Moments after the attack, and a driver is caught by Muslim worshippers he tried to kill. He rammed his van into men who'd just finished prayers. Survivors furious. Their imam protecting the man as he's handed to police.
No one touched him, no one.
Witnesses say he'd accelerated as he mounted the sidewalk, then threatened Muslims.
He said, I did it and I want to kill some Muslims.
He basically screamed out, I'll do it again, and then he stuck out his hand like that as a gesture to mock people.
I'll do it again.
I'll do it again.
Police say he's a terror suspect, named as 47-year-old Darren Osborne. He was not on a terror watch list. British Prime Minister Theresa May tried to reassure Muslims. Britain's leader says she's determined to stamp out extremism, but the pace of these terror attacks accelerating, and people here are angry. 4 attacks in 4 months now. A car attack and stabbing at Westminster. A bomb at Ariana Grande's concert in Manchester. A van attack and mass stabbing at London Bridge. All of them Islamist attacks, until this one. Another driver acting alone, say police. Tonight, more flowers, more defiance.
London is a resilient city. We are the greatest city in the world.
And it's also a city on edge. Bill Neely, NBC News, London.
We turn now to a dangerous situation in Syria. The U.S. shooting down a Syrian aircraft for the first time, prompting Syrian President Assad's allies, the Russians, to say they'll now target American planes. A very tense showdown playing out tonight. We get the latest from our chief foreign affairs correspondent, Andrea Mitchell.
Tonight, hours after a U.S. F-18 from the George H.W. Bush aircraft carrier shot down a Syrian jet for the first time, Russia now threatening to target American warplanes. The U.S. launching that attack after it says Syria kept bombing U.S.-backed ground forces, despite warnings to Syria's Russian allies on a military hotline.
The U.S. called the Russians on that deconfliction telephone line that we have set up with them, and the Russians said, no, we're not going to abide by that.
Today, the Russians suspending the hotline set up to prevent the two superpowers from firing on each other, either on purpose or by accident. The American commanders trying to avoid retaliation, tonight flying fewer strike missions and more surveillance over Syria.
And I'm also confident that our forces have the capability to take care of themselves.
The last time Russia threatened to cut the hotline in April, when the president fired cruise missiles at a Syrian airbase after the regime used chemical weapons. That time, Moscow backed down.
Shows you how dangerous this war in Syria has become. In a very small space, to have these powerful militaries all working side by side, sometimes bumping up against each other, is a dangerous situation, so great care has to be taken.
Tonight, the White House says that the Syrian regime needs to understand that the U.S. has the right to defend itself and U.S.-backed ground forces. Critics say the White House is just paying the price for letting Russia have too free a hand in the skies over Syria. Lester?
All right, Andrea Mitchell in Washington, thank you. Now to the spotlight shining on the president's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner, speaking publicly today, an event so rare it was likely the first of it coming ahead of a critical trip to the Middle East. A lot on Kushner's plate as the Russian investigation swirls around the White House. Here's NBC News Chief White House correspondent Hallie Jackson.
One of the most important voices in the president's ear, using it publicly for one of the first times today.
This is Technology Week here at the White House.
Jared Kushner, low volume but high profile, leading a series of tech sessions with some of the industry's biggest names, the leaders of Amazon, Apple, and Google.
Many warned me that the bureaucracy would resist any change that we tried to implement. So far, I have found exactly the opposite.
It's part of a massive portfolio for the president's son-in-law and top advisor, which includes overhauling the federal bureaucracy and Mideast peace. For that, Kushner will head to Jerusalem and Ramallah this week to jumpstart those negotiations with Israelis and Palestinians.
There's a lot of audacity on the part of Donald Trump in tasking his son-in-law with achieving Middle East peace, something that diplomats with decades and decades of experience have come up short in doing. But sometimes in American history, the breakthroughs are done by the people who don't know what they don't know.
Kushner's top-level meetings come as, back home, he remains under scrutiny in the Russia investigation, according to multiple U.S. officials. That investigation by the special counsel getting new pushback now from the president's outside legal team.
There's been no notification to any of us that the president is under any investigation.
I think the only person at this point who knows whether the president is under investigation is Bob Mueller, and he's not telling.
Although special counsel Bob Mueller has never publicly confirmed it, a source familiar with the talks tells NBC Mueller is requesting interviews with top officials as he looks into potential obstruction of justice by the president. And tonight, the White House says it's possible that by the end of this week, we could get some clarity on whether any Oval Office tapes or recordings exist, and if so, what's on them. Friday also happens to be a congressional deadline. Tapes over. Lester?
Hallie Jackson at the White House tonight. Thank you. Now to the latest on the deadly collision between a U.S. Navy destroyer and a Philippine cargo ship that has left 7 U.S. sailors dead. The Navy has now released the names of the victims who were killed off Japan's coast as 2 different timelines of the incident surface. The conflicting details coming as family members remember their loved ones while they wait answers. NBC's Miguel Almaguer has details.
The damage to the USS Fitzgerald was so crippling, the victims never escaped their flooded sleeping quarters. Navy divers recovering the bodies of 7 sailors. Here at home, flags were lowered and tears fell. The oldest sailor, 37-year-old Gary Ream Jr., was 3 months from retirement. The youngest, 19-year-old Dakota Rigsby, volunteered at this Virginia firehouse.
He had a great life ahead of him, but you know what? He served our country and he did what he loved, so I'm proud of him.
The Navy says the collision happened in clear weather at 2:20 a.m. Saturday, but Japan's Coast Guard says the accident took place an hour earlier. This marine tracker shows the cargo ship making a hard turn at 1:30 a.m. and a U-turn, backtracking at 2:20 a.m.
For a U.S. Navy destroyer to be involved in a collision with loss of life at sea is extremely rare, once every decade or 2.
The Navy says the crew of the Fitzgerald fought heroically to keep it afloat. Commander Bryce Benson among the injured, but 7 of his sailors, including Carlos Sabayan, who followed his father into the Navy, won't be coming home.
My son is a survivor. He knows how to survive. This time, he wasn't given a chance to...
Tonight, the Navy says the investigation will take weeks, but for 7 of these families, the heartbreak will last a lifetime. Miguel Almaguer, NBC News.
There is new information tonight on the death of Carrie Fisher. While the coroner says the cause of her death was sleep apnea and other undetermined factors in her system, a mix of illegal drugs. A tragic final chapter in a struggle the actress was so bravely open about during her life. We get details from NBC's Ann Thompson.
Death revealed Carrie Fisher never escaped the grip of drugs in life. Cocaine, heroin, and ecstasy found in her system. The coroner's report says the cocaine was taken within 72 hours of when Fisher slumped over on a London to Los Angeles flight December 23rd. She died 4 days later.
A lot of people just, wish she could have found the help and the peace that she needed.
Somebody has to save our skins. Fisher's portrayal of Star Wars Princess Leia made her a movie icon. Her struggles with mental illness and drugs humanized her.
I make very difficult situations in my life funny as quickly as possible.
And you're right. She was born into celebrity, the daughter of crooner Eddie Fisher and actress Debbie Reynolds. Mother and daughter were so close, Reynolds died the day after Fisher. Over the weekend, Fisher's daughter Billie Lourd said in a statement, "I know my mom. She'd want her death to encourage people to be open about their struggles." Carrie Fisher certainly was. Ann Thompson, NBC News, New York.
There's more to bring to you tonight. Still ahead, inside the overdose capital of America. We're on the front lines with police as they make a major bust that may have saved thousands of lives. We'll be right back.
I'm Ryan.